Hello, everyone. It's a very sad day here at We Know Reality TV as we bid farewell to yet another season of Amazing Race Canada. Yes, it is the recap episode for the finale of season 11 of Amazing Race Canada. My name is Jessica Liese. I am very, very disappointed and sad that it's over. Obviously, I am very, very ecstatic and happy for our winners who were an amazing team, and this is a great cast. It's a fun season. But Dan, how are you feeling? You happy? You sad? Where you at?
I'm good. I'm happy. Well, I already saw that John announced, I don't know if it was Facebook, Instagram, whatever, that they are already approved for another season. It's like, geez, guys. It's like,
Well, I mean,
okay.
you can't slow down when you're Canada's #1 summertime adventure.
That's true. And I mean, he's talking about, people got to start thinking about whether or not you're going to apply. Now, I'm assuming it's every year I say next season they're going to do All Stars. And then I'm just to the point where I'm like, that's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. They just like the new people. That's what they like.
I mean, can you blame them? I don't think at this point there's going to be a bad cast. There has not been a bad cast of Amazing Race Canada yet.
No, and that's the thing. That's the strength. Like, especially this season, I feel like I was even kind of looking back at some recent seasons, which all had really good casts. But this season I felt like was very steady across the board. Like everybody brought something. And that's what I enjoyed about the season. Like even at the end, I'm like, oh, I don't get to see Magoo anymore. I mean, you can. I'm sure there's plenty of places I could see Magoo. But we barely saw them this episode. But I just so this is a question. I was going to wait for questions, but Jess, what do you think about the final 4 versus 3? Because I have thoughts about it. I'm curious for your thoughts.
Well, I think you've probably heard me espouse this idea on various Amazing Race podcasts because that's kind of how I operate. I have one really good idea and I just repeat it a lot of times and I sound smart. I have always felt like the worst 2 legs of any given season of Amazing Race are going to be the first one and the last one. The first one because there's too many people, too much going on, and you don't get to know everybody. And the last one because you're relying on 3 teams to carry the entire story. And sometimes the teams that we get are maybe not the most interesting ones. In fact, a lot of times the fan favorite team goes out in 4th place and we don't get to have like the big personality pushing us through to the end. And I think in this case, it helps your cause to have an extra team in the mix. You're following 8 people instead of 4. And those final 6, 5, and 4, those are always where the best legs of the show historically tend to happen. So having an extra team in that finale, I don't know that it changes the game that much, but it certainly changes the viewing experience and it makes it more interesting. Like, as we'll get into, Nippy and Magoo probably, like, we could have said goodbye to them last week and we would have had the same outcome. But having them there, I think it gave us a little bit more going on because if they hadn't been there, this would have been a pretty god-awful boring leg. Not to take anything away from the fantastic victory. And congratulations, by the way, to Jesse and Jonathan. Dominant team, great dynamics, great personalities, very good racers, no notes. But they got out in front, they stayed out in front, and really nothing changed. And that is the worst kind of finale there is. So having that 4th team there, I think it kind of elevated things a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting because, my first inclination is always like, because the way that the finale is set up, where it's like you have a team that finishes, and then like even we saw this time where I'm just like, they purposely showed the teams finishing that task to show, yes, Nippy and Magoo did do that. But my first thought is always the final 4, I'd rather have 3. But I also thought about it, and I know I don't want to take anything away from Justin Jonathan. I promise we will get to the headline here. It's just, it kind of it covers with the episode though, because I look at it and I go, but this season, let's say you have to have 10 episodes, then you either do one non-elimination. I don't really love that. I like two. I think two's good. Or you got to do some weird double elimination. Don't like that at all. So I do
Ooh.
think it's probably for this setup. If they had 11 episodes, like, oh, maybe you extend it. But with 10, yeah, I think it works okay.
Yeah, I think it does fine. I think part of the reason we like these casts is because we get to spend so much time with them. I mean, you have fewer teams, you have fewer legs, but what you do get, you get to see them doing a variety of things. And I think you can't really say, I wish they weren't here. Because
No.
we love Nippy and Magoo. We don't want them to not be there.
Please don't walk home. Please don't.
Yeah.
Just stay in the. But yeah, I don't mean to jump out ahead because yes, Jesse and John. The fact that they named this episode "Double Roadblock" shows what I mean. That was the task. I mean, there was the task at the end. Yes, Grace and Joe had a chance the way it looked, but really that task basically delivered the final placement. It was 1, 2, 3, 4 when they left, and that's what they finished. So I don't know. They did a lot of things. They bobbed for apples. They delivered cupcakes, but that first task was it, Jess.
Yeah. And I think we're going to have a lot of opinions. I think this was a very polarizing task. I will say that much. I wanted the whole leg to be that hard. I wanted all of it to just be grueling. And I'm not going to take anything away from that final puzzle because I think the final puzzle probably was pretty crazy hard, but it really did feel like at least they did something. At least something happened that wasn't just whoever got the fastest cab arrived at the bungee jump and got to do the bungee jump first was the team that won, which has happened in many a season of The Amazing Race. So I think there was plenty of potential for things to get mixed up, and it's not the fault of the game design necessarily that that's not what happened, even if I would have liked to see a little bit more out of that really mushy middle that we got here. But let's take it up to the top because I think we need to start out. We have a very controversial move up here at the top. As they're getting out of the airport, you see Magoo take an abrupt heel turn. This was wild to me because if I was going to put money on what team was going to steal a cab, I don't think it would have been them.
It's interesting. We actually got a comment from Carl J. Wooden in Facebook who said, great season, happy with the winners, really unhappy with how the episode started, who I thought was a nice team jumping the queue. And I just think that's funny because to me, I mean, yes, you did. It's funny because also you saw Evie and Blake who were like, we want to jump the line, but we're going to ask the people first if we can jump the line. And then they said, okay. And we're like, all right, great. But to me, I think about the most egregious cab things people have done. Taking people's bags out of the cabs, calling and canceling their cab. This is all US. I have to say this is not.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say getting into a cab and saying you're Joe when you're not Joe.
Yeah, that's this season. All those things are worse than what Magoo did. Magoo basically was like, I mean, again, going by the typical standards for Amazing Race Canada, this was a heel turn. But to me, I look at it and it was like, it was one of those things where he's like, everyone's getting in line, doing their thing. Jesse and Jonathan are doing their thing. And I think Magoo and Nippy kind of came in this like, we got to do whatever we can. These guys are all so good. We're just whatever. And they saw an opening and there wasn't like there was an official who came out and was like, don't do that. And Magoo was like, take that, man. Or I'm trying to think of something very clean, take that, man. But, I'm going to do what I want. It did like a little dance or whatever. But no, I think for me, it kind of made me smile. I was like, oh, they're going for it. I didn't take this like, oh, they're bad and they did something totally evil. Am I just cutting them too much slack?
Well, that was going to be the next question I had for you, Dan. If any other team does this, are we quite as charitable to that team?
Well, probably not. Because again, when you see the front runners do this, that was the whole thing with Eric and Jeremy when they were doing all that stuff in season 9. They were the front runners of that season. And then they were also the heels of the season. And that, I mean, they weren't like mean, but you know what I mean? When people are kind of like that, and they're winning the legs. Like if Jesse and Jonathan did it, we're like, or even Evie and Blake, because, you know, early in the season, they were kind of like, they went out very graciously this whole leg, but they were kind of like, you know, we're number one, we're the best. If they had done it, I'd be like, but I don't know. I think this was all Magoo too. Like, you know, it was just like, that's it. We've got, you know, they won the leg last week and he's like, we're carrying this to the finish. We've got this. And, you know, I think it's all right. I mean, it's not like the nicest thing anyone's ever done on the show, but it's also not the worst thing either.
No, not the worst thing by a long shot. And it is, they do come into this leg kind of scrappy, and you really would love to see it if they did win, if they just like come in at an 11 and they're pulling out all the stops to get there and it pays off. What a great story that would be. I would love that. And I like that they came in with that kind of ruthless energy, even if it didn't quite move the needle the way it needed to. But yeah, I thought it was entertaining. It was a great way to kick things off. I think given the outcome we had and the performances we had, I think this episode had everything we could possibly want outside of like maybe a slightly closer outcome. But we then have another player that I think I need to talk about. I think Magoo sets the tone real early, but then you have Joe, who's just like transformed into a new character this episode. We've seen hints of it, but we've never seen like, he's never gone full Joe. He's just like dad joke a minute, this guy. And he's had some great dad jokes over the course of the season, don't get me wrong, but he just comes in like, where was this guy all season? He's legit the funniest person in the entire cast.
Well, I have noticed during this season that he doesn't seem to get rattled. Like there's moments where they are like falling apart, like early in the season. I mean, in terms of their placement, you know, the down arrows going, and he's just like, yeah, I mean, it was almost like Jesse of Jesse and Marika, like, man, things are really rough right now. You know, it's just, he kind of has that like, yeah, this is kind of rough. And I think he went into the finale. They've done really well lately. And I think he's just gotten real chill. Like things are going to work out. We're chill. We're watching Jesse and Jonathan are getting real nervous. I noticed at the beginning that Nippy and Magoo and Joe and Grace were like in the 12s when they departed, like 12-13, 12-20. Jesse and Jonathan, Nippy and Blake, 131, 133. So they were a good hour plus behind those top two teams. So those teams were kind of freaking out. And he's just like, yeah. But he did make a funny joke that someone called out. I mean, funny in a relative term, but funny dad joke where Grace was like, our stakes are so high. And he was like, sirloin steaks. And then looked at the camera like, hey. And she laughed because, you know, they've been together for weeks now. I mean, been together on this race. She's probably heard 50,000 of those we never saw. We're like, yeah, good attempt there. So, you know, but yeah, I think he was real chill. And I think that benefited them. Even though they didn't end up winning, they stayed very close, not just because of both of them, I think, have really hit their stride. That's why I thought if anybody was going to beat Jesse and Jonathan, I mentioned it last week, they seem most likely because they had that just like, it's all cool, man. We're going to do it. We can win. Not like, oh my God, if we don't win, what's going to happen? No, just we're good. We're all right. But yeah, they had the nice vibes the whole way. But I should mention though, you mentioned that Nippy and Magoo didn't gain much. They did get to be on the first flight at our last example of the Fuse sign-up board. They got it into the finale, Jess.
Yeah, I did enjoy one final look at Fuse. It's very bittersweet, probably much like the tea itself. And you can see Jesse and Jonathan go up to the board and so I'm like, I guess we'll have a Fuse.
Well, they were last and they're just like, oh, okay. I mean, the end of it, I think if it was even 15 minutes apart, the two flights.
Yeah.
You notice John did not say how far apart they were. And the teams all caught up pretty fast. So 10, 15 minutes, whatever. But yeah, the whole task number one was get a cab the fastest so you can get on the first flight. That was the first 5 minutes of the leg.
Yeah. And Amazing Race Canada tends not to show us a whole lot of this kind of stuff. So it did stick out a little bit. but it was only 5 minutes, Dan. You know, Amazing Race US would spend half the episode on this, and they would litigate it endlessly, and we would get to hear every single person of the 8 people left in the race. All of them would have a take about Magoo's cab thievery, and it would be 9:25, and we'd finally be pulling up to the flight. But we didn't have to do that because this is Canada, and Canada has a different relationship to the Amazing Race. But we go to what I think is maybe the centerpiece of the episode. It's the only thing that actually made a difference in the placement, and it is also a controversial game changer here. And I cannot wait because I know you're going to have takes on this. I certainly have a lot of takes on this. We get a new thing called a double roadblock. And this is not a double roadblock in the sense of like a double U-turn being like something that you have to do twice. It's a double roadblock in that you got to decide who's going to do what. And we get who will go up and who will go down. Now, I love the set piece of the grain elevators because this is a very Canadian prairie coded thing. There's a similar structure in the middle of Lethbridge, which I saw this summer. And I think they're beautiful to look at and really creepy to run around in, obviously. But okay, Dan, we're here. Out with it. What did you think?
Okay, I have two minds of this. One, the positive side of it. I think it's kind of a cool device where you have the teams each have to pick something to do, and it is kind of like a roadblock in a way, especially on the first end. The first end felt more like a roadblock because it took longer and you had to go find it. There's a whole nother level we got to talk about in terms of the way the task was set up with the shapes and everything. But just in terms of the double roadblock, I think that's not a bad idea. But I don't know if I like the name, Jess. I don't think a double roadblock is really it kind of is, but it's really just like, okay, we got some jobs to do. Who's doing what? It's like that kind of thing. I don't know. Would you really double roadblock? I guess it's technically one person does one thing and the other person waits. Then the other person, it's kind of like that, but it's just kind of clunky. I don't know.
It's a little clunky. Are there better things we could call it? Because we're running out of road and or track related metaphors here. And I'm trying to think of like, what is the obvious traffic metaphor for something where you have two different intersecting bodies, each with a different responsibility? Like, do you do that in driving? Driving is a solitary activity.
Right. You don't drive one way, come back, and then drive the other way. Or like if you're with a passenger, you don't split the car in half, like all the Love Bug, like split the car in half and then the two sides drive forward. You can't even call it a fork in the road because they did that. That was the Amazing Race US thing. And it's not a fork in the road. So I guess it's fine. I don't love the idea they named the episode that. It's like, how lazy you guys gonna be? You couldn't name it sirloin steaks. I don't know, something. But here's my question. The thing that doesn't bother me, and actually I like that they made it hard, and I even like the idea of it created some interesting drama with the shapes because everybody goes for square because that's easier to find, and then triangle and everything else. And then things are gone, and that really is what messed up. I think that's great. But if you're going to set up a task like that where teams are going to get spread out, like you mentioned earlier, you better do that in every task of the leg. Because if you set up this task where teams are going to be, especially the last two teams really have a hard time. Those last two teams were done after this task. You could say Grace and Joe still had a chance, but because of the way the shapes were, and I'm going to get your thoughts on the shapes and the way they did that. But that's the issue with the mushy middle is that this, I feel like in its own, just this task, pretty cool, pretty inventive, pretty different. But in the context of this whole leg, it really had a huge impact because the other tasks weren't the same way mostly.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't think the problem was the task qua the task. I think the problem was that the other tasks didn't rise to this level. And I thought the Squid Game shapes were fun. I like the idea of having to choose judiciously which shape you're going for. Although it really felt to me like it was random. It was like, what are you going to find? They were tiny on there. It was like somebody wrote on them, like they used a little paint marker to write on the wall, and that felt a little cheap. But it was interesting when you had two teams. Like, this was really arguably the difference between EB and Blake being in it and EB and Blake not being in it, was they picked the wrong shape, and it was really kind of arbitrary. And I wonder how much space there actually was, because it sure seemed like every time somebody ran out of there, everybody else ran out of there to see what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it was presented as like it's this labyrinth of darkness, and I don't think it was that. I think it was fairly small because you knew what everybody else was doing at any given time, which kind of took away from it, because that was maybe a mistake that would have been harder to make if you knew you're both looking for the same shape.
Yeah, and it also was interesting too. Yeah, because even like you saw with the last two teams where EB was in there with Nippy, and he was like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And then she didn't realize he was still standing really close and just says the number out loud, and he's like, "Yep," and just goes out. It was a la Ika and Dimitri and Grace and Joe.
Yeah,
last time, or was that last week? Yeah, I think it was, or very recently. And it's the same idea. And by that point, she was just like, get me out of this race. I'm just, this is ridiculous. But I agree, because John, of course, sold it like, this is the scariest place you've ever been in your life. And it was like on par with that fort, which was really big.
Yeah. People, this is not even the scariest place we've been on this race.
No birds attacked anyone during this or guarded the clue or whatever. But yeah, so I think, and it was interesting because it did seem like everybody went to the same spot, and that was kind of by design, because then everyone got the same. And it must have been that Circle was down a different little hallway or something. Because once she found it, again, we're going by the edit here, it seemed like she found them quickly after that. There was a sad moment where Nippy went up there before EB, and she had the wrong number, where she said 94 and it was 93. And I don't know if that was a memory or what. But that was too bad, because really this was a case, where even though Nippy and Magoo were the ones that, obviously got the commercial breaks, and she was, I mean, I felt bad for her, because it was like, once you're the last one there, and she felt so bad that she had ruined this for Magoo. And of course, he's being super supportive and everything, but she's getting out tobacco and praying and everything like that. So dramatically, it worked out. I mean, it was dramatic, but Evie and Blake, I think they kind of knew they were in trouble too, because they were very not stressed the rest of the way. And that made me think that, I mean, I know they got, like we saw at the end when Jesse and Jonathan ran to go to the mat, Evie and Blake had a decent amount of the signs up. So they were in it. It wasn't that if people had made a mistake, they could have caught up, but their chances were much lower.
Yeah. I mean, okay, Dan, I'm going to give you the hottest take I've had all season. The name could use some workshopping, but the concept is freaking fantastic. I think it's great. And I know I'm going to get pushback. I know not everybody agrees with me. We even had a comment to the effect of, this sucked and it was the worst thing ever. And that was the question. My question is, don't you think this is the worst thing ever? I don't. I think it's awesome. And here is why. I want something that you can't study for. I want your final Amazing Race leg to be something that you are not expecting, and to have a completely new game mechanic in the mix where both of you have to be doing something. I think it's brilliant, because it requires both team members to step up. And remember, Dan, remember those early seasons of Amazing Race US? And what is the worst thing about those early seasons of Amazing Race US?
Well, they don't have the roadblock rules.
Exactly.
Especially
the
season 5.
So yeah, season 5, you just see like the big strong dudes doing all of the tasks the whole time. And then you get to this thing where you have the Ascenders, and you have a team get knocked out because they don't have the upper body strength, and everybody else is still allowed to do it. So this is just like, in every season of Amazing Race, we've kind of wiped the slate clean for the final leg. And it doesn't matter how many roadblocks anybody has done or not done, but I always thought it was awful when like one person screws up a roadblock on the final leg, and end up knocking their team out of it because of that. Like, that would haunt me. And here it's like you both have something to do and you could still screw it up for somebody. Like, I don't think, I'm not going to blame Nippy for what happened. And I think she did a great job recovering. They finished strong, but they both had to do something. They both had to take an active role, and they had to, the puzzle nerd in me is also saying the mechanics having to remember those numbers and having to like relay the numbers and then remember them all through the task, and both of you have to do it. It's very fun, and it's maybe I'm looking at this more from the standpoint of someone who's doing the race rather than someone who's watching the race, because you could have done a lot to make it more interesting visually. But I think people in the race competing, this couldn't be a better situation for them. And I want to see more of it. I think the name needs some workshopping, but I would also not hate it if they managed to come up with a different little spin on the game structure for the finale every season.
Yeah, I can't disagree. And I really like the number thing too. I also like, just from the TV perspective, the idea of them like climbing up, having to be like 44, 73, 115, 44, 73, 115. And I wrote that down because I wouldn't remember that from the show, but they didn't write it down. And then having to just like, oh, you've got to go grab this bag. I mean, it's all kind of silly, but they're doing more things. And I think that's good. And so that part of it, I think, was fun. Yeah. And even I enjoyed Magoo, that ascender was not that easy for him, I will say. And he's like, and I heard the voice of an angel when I was going up, and it was from below, and then it was Nippy's voice. And I was like, oh my gosh.
It was cute.
This is about, I wonder how many fun, ridiculous, not bad, fun, ridiculous things he said that we never saw. Like, I bet you the way John reacted on the mat, I'm like, I bet you every leg was stuff like this. But, yeah, so I think they will bring it back. You see, when they bring in something like the pass, which, granted, double roadblock, much better than the pass for a name, much better. Yep. It's not on the bottom. They have that stupid assist they keep bringing back. Sorry, Desjardins. I'm just, Desjardins not in the finale, but I will say that I think we'll see it again, not in the finale probably, but I think it's interesting that, like you said, that they're testing this kind of out. But I think, yeah, like this, a few little tweaks, but there's also an interesting game theory idea if you were really thinking it through. Like, if you came in and the first one you found was a square, I know everybody's thinking finale, they don't know what it is, but in hindsight, they're probably like, why didn't I just not do the one everyone was doing? I mean, Jesse and Jonathan don't think that, but just be like, why don't I find the hardest one and do that? I don't know. I'm just trying to think, move away from all the people, find the other shape. But in the moment, I don't criticize anyone for that.
That's kind of like if you have to find something to go to the furthest one before you just start at the nearest one. That's pretty standard Amazing Race strategy. Yeah. Could you call it a relay? Because it kind of is a relay in two different ways. Two different senses of the word. Because you have one person finishing a thing and passing on to the next person. But then you also have to relay the information to each other. Good. So
you're like tagging out in wrestling or something.
Yeah.
Like, you can, I don't know, that relay again, you can kind of, I mean, they have like weird car relays. You can kind of extend that a little bit, but I don't care. I mean, I'd rather have it be a name that really fits than have to be a road term.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. And relay, you're racing. Like, you see relay races, they're doing the world championships of track and field right now. They're doing relays and stuff. It's like they're handing off the baton. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, it's a lot like that. I don't know. I think that we, like them, should have done more than 30 seconds of workshopping this name. I feel like maybe you and I just did more thinking about it than they did. But that's okay. It's a great idea. I want to see more innovation like this, especially in the final leg. But then we get to what is arguably the weakest and most annoying part of the entire thing, which is this deliver cupcakes to somebody's birthday on an aquatrike. It's a 0 skill task. I do not like it. The show gave approximately 2 minutes of time up to this, and it was about 1 minute and 55 seconds too much.
They also had to deliver balloons. Don't
Oh
forget the
yeah,
balloons.
balloons.
You know, they should have done something where like the balloons could pop really easily. Like you had to something to make it hard. Like you could have done something where like while like you have to like if someone's trying to come, like clowns are trying to come and stab the balloons, you have to keep the balloons away. I
Is
mean,
this the Traitors, Dan?
oh, actually, yeah, that actually did happen on the
It
Traitors.
literally did.
I haven't even watched the Ireland one yet, but yes, and I watched like the UK version, same exact thing. They come in, they stab the balloon. Yeah, okay. I didn't even think about that. Maybe they're not clowns. Maybe they're just party goers. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't need clowns. We don't ever need clowns.
No, they
We
didn't
didn't need them on the Traitors either.
No, it didn't. But basically, yeah. My first thought when they had balloons was like, well, what happens if they pop them? You know, that was my thought. Yeah, I don't know why. I
What
spent
happens
more
if they
time.
let them go? Like that was my balloon anxiety as a child. Like, what if it slips out of my hand and it goes up into the atmosphere and I never see it again? Like that,
Do you
I'd be
think
more worried about that.
on this unrelated note, do you think it was that person's birthday actually? That's the real
Yes.
question. It's
Like,
not like when they have the fake weddings or anything. It was
no.
actually their birthday.
I mean, if it was my birthday and Amazing Race was coming to my town, you'd best believe I'd be pulling out all of the strings. I'd be calling everyone in my Amazing Race Rolodex, like, can I please have my birthday party in the middle of filming The Amazing Race?
Yeah, they're like, okay, that'll be $5,000 sold. It's like that's
Yeah.
fine.
Any
We'll
amount
put
of
it
money.
together.
Name your price.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they didn't waste too much time on it. It's to the point where like when I was thinking about what they did this task, I almost forgot they did this. Like this finale, I was remember, okay, bobbing for apples, okay, the jet surf. All right, wait, they did something else in the oh yeah, the birthday cupcakes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
a real race to the bottom as far as forgettable tasks on this leg. It was between this and the apples because the apples, I almost missed this entirely. I'm like, what are they doing? Why are they at an orchard? Why are there numbers on the apples? I had to go back and watch it again because this was honestly, it sounded harder than it was. Like it clearly didn't make any difference whatsoever. But yeah, it was brutal. Like if we saw this in the middle of another like an earlier leg, I don't think I'd have quite as much of a problem with it.
Yeah, well, there's an apple orchard that has locations near St. Louis called Eckerd's, and they also have like a farm with little games, and they have pig races. I mean, it's a whole thing. But it's surprising how often tasks in seasons of Amazing Race Canada make me think, they might do something like that at Eckerd's. Never as much as this one, though, Jess. I mean, they don't put the numbers on the apples. And I know John was like, this is so big. I'm like, that's probably the same size as the place that's 15 minutes from my house. So, I mean, again, it's fine. This is kind of the charm of the Amazing Race Canada. But I think, like you said, when you're talking finale and the first task was so involved and so important to placement, then it's just like, okay, we got to do all this other stuff. And this is one that I'm sure we can get some mileage out of making fun of. But like you said, it's very different in this versus the finale.
Yeah.
I mean, in the finale versus normal.
Yeah. The finale needs to be all pretty hard, pretty big tasks. And this was neither one of those things. But then we do end up getting something a little bit more exciting. Not that much more exciting, especially since we saw pretty much exactly this on last season of US Amazing Race. But we get to go jet surfing.
This had my favorite moment of the episode, though. There's the editors. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah, this was amazing. I know exactly what you're about to say.
Talking to the camera, she's gonna do awesome. We cut to this is the first time I've ever considered finding some way to pull a sound clip for us to do on this, because the cut to the scream of Nippy going, I mean, she wasn't even falling off, she was just screaming. And oh my gosh, I went back and watched it like 3 times because I thought it was so funny, because it's just they cut in like him saying like being supportive Magoo to her just like staying on it. She wasn't falling off, just screaming this really ridiculous scream, Jess.
Yeah, it was not since Hung and Chi of Amazing Race US have we heard quite an epic scream.
Oh man, I'm gonna miss them. They're so fun. I
They're
don't know.
really
As the seasons
all-star
go on,
contenders for
yeah,
sure.
I mean they lost their bags, and then the Magoogoos, and this. Oh my gosh, there's so much. I was really pulling for them by the end, but they're having fun at this point. But yeah. So I didn't mean to preempt though us talking about the strategy of this. So you've got to go and do it in 24 seconds. You got to do a left turn and a right turn, and then turn.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've seen this test so many times, Jess.
Yeah, it's a thing. Again, this is a fine task if you're showing it in leg 5. It's less of a fine task if you're showing it in the finale. And you need to bring your A game to all of these tasks. And it wouldn't be hard. It wouldn't be a huge outlay to do something a little more epic with this. Like, make people collect something, make people find something. Like, use the jet surfing board as your home base for exploration. Like, you have to go and achieve a thing while you're on this ridiculous thing. It's so much better than just go around in a circle.
Not great for TV. It's funny. I was thinking about earlier this season when, one, they had the whole Alpine coaster where they had to count. Then they had the dog sled thing where they had to remember the random paper or cardboard animals. Those aren't perfect examples, but I get you're kind of thinking something like, it's probably better than those two examples. So I did kind of like the counting, but yeah, I don't know what it is. Heck, have them like find the letters and unscramble and have it say finish line, though that would be false because they have another task. But you know what I mean? Something just, I don't know. Let them find the letters to where they're going next.
Or freaking Survivor it up in this. And you got to take it out to get your bag of signs that you then have to take to the memory task.
Yeah, there's a lot of good options. And I know part of this is the visual of it's the finale and they want them to do something fast, like, 60 kilometers per hour or however fast John said. And John's on there. Yeah, I mean, I didn't do the conversion, but it's not, but I'm not going to try and do it really fast to try and look smart. But, I've already failed at that. But it's just, I thought this one was fine. It's weird because in certain finales, I'd be like, and then they did that jet surfing. Oh my gosh. But that one, compared to the delivering of the cupcakes, I'm like, yeah, this is better.
What if they had to deliver the cupcakes on the jet surfing board?
And have the balloons that they couldn't pop.
Right. And you can't fall off the jet surfing. You can't damage the cupcakes. You've got to get the thing across the lake while you're kneeling on the board and holding stuff. That's probably a safety hazard. It's probably a liability issue because I don't think that's an intended use of the jet surfing.
Probably not.
But
also, those cupcakes would be useless for the birthday party after that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they might, the way they brought them over, normally whenever they deliver food, I'm like, people are never eating those. This, I was like, well, they're probably still okay. They got them from that nice place. I forget, Rusty's, or was that the place? Some place. Yeah,
Was it a miss to not give them a cupcake? The same way we got like a vat of Thousand Island dressing, or we get like the moose farts.
I was like, oh, we're going to talk about moose farts again. Yeah, they should have given him a cupcake, and said, at least then it's like, oh, this is so stressful. You're going to need to get fueled. Oh, then they would have just given him a boost. But, you're going to need to get something before this last task. No. I mean, that wasn't even the last one. I guess they figured they'd eat some apples while they were bobbing. I don't know. You're like, oh no, you ate the number 20. How are you going to get to 100? But, I digress. But yeah, so let me remember now. Are we at the finale, the last task, right? That was it. Yep. The jet surfing, and then we did the signs. I do really appreciate that they keep trying to find new ways to, one, have more things. Mm-hmm. Like US, we'd have like 14 or 15, and this you get 50. I'm sure this took much longer. It looked like, of course, Jesse and Jonathan walked up and then just put them all up there and had like hardly any missing. But it did seem like, just right, that there were a few, obviously, that were the hard ones.
Yeah. Like everybody gets 90% of it, and then you spend the rest of the time on the other 10%. There's one other very funny thing that I thought the editors did here that I had to rewind it and watch it again because it cracked me up. And maybe this is just me. but we see Grace and Joe pull up to the puzzle task. They get their signs out and they start pulling out signs, and Joe pulls out a sign and he says, "Oh, well, this is the beach course I just finished." And you think they're going to show like archival footage the way they're showing like everybody else's,
Yeah,
here's the
in the
town
sign.
crier. Yeah. And instead they cut to Evie doing the task on the beach course. And I thought that was so clever.
It's like, oh yeah, in case you forgot what just happened, here's someone else doing it. That's happening right now. That's funny. I didn't even notice that. I did like the way that they put the archival footage. Archival makes it sound like it's from 60 years ago. The footage from a few weeks ago in the sign. I think that's kind of a clever way. And they would show the teams trying to figure it out, doing it in a lot of ways. Thought that was clever. And really, though, it came down to, I got to say, best of with the hockey puck. Pretty lame. Best of designed to trick. I don't love that one. I don't know. That was the hockey face off. I mean, I guess it was who got the most goals, but to me, at best of, I'd be out there forever trying to figure that out.
Yeah, best of black circle. Yeah,
that's what everyone kept saying. Yeah, best of circle.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know who's sitting on Wikipedia doing this, but somebody screenshotted this week and went onto Wikipedia and put literally every sign in order, naming what they were and what it looked like. This must have taken hours, and hats off to you, sir or madam. This is amazing. So you get to actually see what is the thing that was tripping people up at various things. And I liked that you had this checkered flag. Everybody thought it was the very first thing, and it turns out it's the very last thing. That was cute.
Yeah, and I also the whole thing with the seats made me laugh because it was the 3 seats where they had. But I love all the conversation. Jesse and Jonathan are sitting there, and they're like, "When did we do 3? Like, when did we get 3 things? Or when did the top?" And they kept thinking about the Fuse sign-up board. And they're like, when are the top 3 teams on a flight? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my brain right now. This is what I would be doing. And that was the one because, again, all the teams struggled basically with that one from what we could tell. And that was the first thing they did. And of course, it's easy to forget. A lot of teams, I think, even forgot that happened. Like, oh yeah, we searched under those seats. Because, I mean, you're in a stadium. It's the first thing you're doing. If you get out of there fast, you barely even remember. The teams that were near the back probably remember it better, but they were out of there quick. So they're like, oh, whatever. But that was kind of clever too. And that was one of the ones that was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I honestly, like, half this stuff, I didn't even remember it happened. Of course, I'm not in the race. I'm not writing it down. I'm not keeping a journal about this, which maybe I should be, arguably. Supposed to be a subject matter expert, but I would have been there all day. This was not an easy thing. And I liked that we're going back to the road sign of it all, because this is where Amazing Race had its genesis, and that there was a little bit of a puzzle element to it as well. And it should have, like, this was hard enough, arguably, that it could have affected the outcome, even if it didn't. So I can't be completely down on this particular leg design because, yeah, we got a bunch of crap in the middle that wasn't going to matter to anybody at any point. But you did have this, and this could have mattered. It just happened to be that Jesse and Jonathan are puzzle geniuses. And I think you could even make a case like if Jesse and Jonathan and Grace and Joe had really struggled with this, you could have even had Evie and Blake in it again. And so it was, there were at least 2 teams that could have won, arguably 3. And then there's, of course, some fake editing about Jesse and Jonathan maybe getting lost. And then Grace and Joe are in the cab, apparently getting there faster. I'm like, nobody buys this. No. Don't try it. Yeah, it's not working. We know they won. And I think we kind of had that feeling, like they just kind of radiated winner energy from the start, Dan.
Yeah, and I will just say I was not spoiled in any way. All I had seen, I watched those 45-second intros, but that's all I knew about Jesse and Jonathan was the little intro we watched and the first episode. And, hey, I had the same thing with Ty and Kat 2 seasons ago, but then last season I was totally wrong. So I'm just, it's some seasons the winning team jumps out. Some seasons the winning team doesn't really jump out. Like it was last season, it was like episode 7 or 8. And I was like, that's interesting. They look like they might have a chance, but I didn't think that early. And so that's kind of where it is. Grace and Joe had the latter one, where early on I thought they might be strong. Oh my gosh, they're going to get eliminated several times, like they mentioned. But as they went along, I thought they could be one of those kind of slow burn, kind of move up kind of teams. And like you said, I agree. Grace was very like, for the viewer, was like, they're only 10 minutes ahead. Hey, we've gained something. They're only 5 minutes ahead. She did not say at the end how far they were, but I'm guessing it wasn't insane. I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm guessing it was 30 minutes or less. I don't think it was 5 minutes, but it was probably fairly close. They seemed to still be very engaged at that point.
Yep. Here's something. I'm going to have to start asking teams about this because I don't know the answer. When you get to that final mat, you have your final 3 teams are going to run. One of the 3 teams is going to run in, and every other team is there at the finish line, like kind of flanking the final mat, and they're all clapping and cheering, and you see the host is like, look, they're over there, they're coming. And in between the teams arriving, we've seen some footage of people like sitting down and like chatting and mingling. But what if there is a team that's an hour behind? Do you get to like go to craft services and have a snack and come back and like set you up on the mat? I don't know the answer to this. We know that, for example, like John Montgomery, if there's a team 2 hours behind, he's not going to stand there on the mat with the greeter for 2 hours. But is it different when it's all the teams? Like, do you all get to like take a break and then they'll radio in like, oh, EB and Blake are coming. Everybody get set up again. I don't know how that works, but I'm curious, and it's weird that I've never asked anybody that.
My guess is yes, especially like in this case. I doubt they took a big break before Grace and Joe showed up. They might have been like, hey, they may need water or whatever. But when Nippy and Magoo were pretty, again, it wasn't dark when they arrived. So that's good. But I'm guessing they were far enough behind, and even EB and Blake were far enough that I could see. You see the way they shoot this. I'm guessing if the camera, who knows, they might have even now they can digitally take people out. But if you pan to the right, there's probably like a table with a bunch of food and drinks and like 30 people with cameras and sound and, I don't know how, remember there was one where they like, they showed some like photos and stuff, behind the scenes photos from an episode where John was inside this like building. And I remember seeing a picture and there was John and the greeter. And then just out of screen, there were so many people. And I was like, whoa. And I think that's probably how it is. But I'm guessing they don't make people stand there for a really long time because, that's just not what they do with TV. I think that's just not
how TV works. No.
Yeah. It's like you got 2 minutes. Okay, I gotta go to the bathroom. Okay, they're coming, and you run back. And even if for some reason someone's not there, they use old footage. I don't know. Yeah. They cut. It's always a little corny, but yeah, I think again, I have no experience with this. I'm just assuming from just rational how TV works kind of thing. It's probably that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I like the idea of like everybody's just standing there lined up and somebody's like, oh, I gotta go to the bathroom. And then they have to shoot around it when the team rolls up. It'd be fantastic.
No, Osa, stay there. No, you can't go. Okay.
You should have gone before you left the house, man.
John's like, I got to give the whole spiel about the trucks and about all the stuff and
the 19,000 kilometers.
Oh man, yeah, the whole thing. It's a whole production. Oh, I should mention. Oh, John also was so proud of himself for the whole coast to coast to coast thing. Oh man, he loved that so much. The fact that they got a third coast with the North, and he got to say it at the beginning of the episode, and then again on the finish line match us.
Yeah, he's super jazzed about that, and who can blame him?
And also, I should mention Magoo. Did you hear Magoo did a giver at one point during the episode? Yeah, I was just like, oh, that's nice. That's nice, Magoo. But So I don't know. Is there any, before we do questions, is there anything else? I mean, I will say I wasn't spoiled. Jesse and Jonathan just seem to have those vibes. We could have totally been wrong. They could have gone out last week, but I feel like actually the way it went, 1, 2, 3, 4, was kind of in my head, the chances I was giving each team to win coming in. So it's interesting that it fell the exact way I was feeling, which usually does not happen.
Yeah, it was. I wanted maybe one more surprise. I think having Nippy and Magoo there, like maybe that was the surprise. Like that's the surprise we got. But I think this would have been, and no shade on Jesse and Jonathan, who are great winners. They are excellent racers, lovely people. I've enjoyed watching them all season. But Dan, what if they'd gone out in like the Ike and Dimitri spot, or even at 6th place? Like they almost went out right around there. What if they had? What if they were the team that like dominates the first half and then has this crushing loss, leaving the field, like just kind of blowing the field wide open for everybody? That would have been amazing to watch.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, what if they go out before that double U-turn episode? So then what happens? Because that was the one where them and EB and Blake both got U-turn, but the second U-turn happened at the final 5, if I remember correctly, or was it at 6? I think it was at 5 they had a U-turn. I'm trying to remember if it was 5 or 6. But regardless, what if they do that? Then it's the thing is, it's not one of those things where you'd say, oh, well, if they went out, then Grace and Joe win. And then even like, no, I don't know. Weird things happen. It's how the way the race goes, you know?
Yeah, it's really like there's really a ripple effect there. But yeah, there was indeed there was a pass and then you're right, there was the U-turn at the final 5. So,
which is rare. That's why I remembered it, because they did a second one, and to do it that late. I mean, both those teams survived after all that. So it was kind of like, well, okay. Was that a vote again? Yeah. My goodness. I'm trying to think. No, they did a U-turn vote at the final 6. That's what I'm thinking of. It's the final 6, episode 8. So it was not the final 5, excuse me.
Right.
But what if let's say somehow they weren't there?
Yeah.
That's where it gets really interesting, because those teams were the obvious 2 U-turn candidates. And I don't mean to get us too much of me staring at the computer screen here while we try to figure something out. But yeah, I think it was a good finale. And I don't know, like you said, I try to think back to the best finales. I feel like even this late, they try to make them do a lot of stuff, but I feel like in past seasons, they've been a little better about getting the placements jumped all over the place.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think a lot of the winners often have gone into the final memory task in the lead. It's actually fairly rare that that's happened. I'm, again, not doing the research on that. There have been times where when Catherine and Craig showed up, I don't think they were first ones to the memory task. And
I don't think they were.
Yes. It's pretty common.
If they gave me a memory task about this subject, I probably would fail it at this point. But that was the one that's the one I kept thinking back to when I was trying to compare this to other recent finales, was that one where all 4 teams were working in the library on different floors, and they were all stuck on the exact same thing, and it was just down to who's going to figure this out first. And it really could have been any of them. I think that's the hallmark of a really good finale, is one where you're at that huge like headliner task, and you do not know who's going to crack that last little thing first.
Yeah, that's one. You think about it, because it just you had Frank Anella, you had of course Brendan Connor, and I think Jesse Marika, but they were all right there. And during that leg, teams kept jumping around. And granted, you can't always get that. I'm sure they wanted that to be this time. They just needed to do something else with those three in a row that were too much in the ride the bike roadblock kind of zone. That was bad enough, and that wasn't even in the finale. But that idea, where it's like, it's really hard in the jet surf for someone to do better or worse by more than a minute or 2. It seems like, from what we saw on TV.
Yeah, it did not seem like that was like, maybe it is objectively hard, but it was not so hard that anybody was really going to get tripped up on it.
Yeah, everyone was about fourth attempt. They seemed to get it. That seemed to be where everybody got it, was fourth attempt. So, it probably take me 12 attempts, but for these racers, it took about 4. So, all right. Should we
All
do
right.
questions?
Yeah, let's do some questions.
All right, where we could start into so many different spots. I did want to call out Alex Bricker, who was the one who said, we hated the double roadblock, right? That was
Yeah,
his
well,
question.
again, polarizing. I love things more when other people hate them.
And the thing is, I think in the context of this episode, it was good and bad, I felt like. But that's not really the fault of the task.
No,
But
I think the task was fine by itself, but there were other factors at play.
Okay, what should we answer next? We got a lot. Thank you, all of you, for the great questions.
Okay, I got one for you, Dan.
All right.
This one comes from Justin Feinberg on Facebook. Where does Joe rank on Dan's list of deadpan people who remain consistently out of 3? Because we know this is Dan's favorite trope.
It's funny. There's so many. There's really one or two every season. But, last season, I mean, we haven't had as many each season, but there's definitely some every time. So the funny thing is, the 2 that jump out at me most are from the same season, which is season 4, which is Joel and Lowell. They're both from the same season, Jess. They were the 2. And then I mentioned Jesse from season 8, the athlete who looked like he was always just doing this.
He was the one where they had the heart rate monitor task, right?
And he's just like, still at 60. Just staying there. Devin and Amanda was kind of like that. Mm-hmm. He was just real chill. But so I think that Joe's a little different, because most of these others were all dads. And by dads, I mean a bit older. I mean, I don't know how old Devin is, but I'm just saying the 2 that I mentioned, Joel and Lowell, a bit older, probably younger than me, but they seemed older at the time and had that real dad joke energy. Joe's a bit younger. And again, it's just a bit of a different vibe, but I would say I would put him pretty high, but I would not list him above the ideal of Joel and then Lowell right behind. But I think he's above some of the other ones that I've either mentioned or that I should mention, like Phil and Martina filled a little bit of that, but
yeah,
he's, I think he's in that second tier. Like, I'd say good, but one thing I will say is he's not a one note. That's the thing. Not those other people one note, but Joe's a pretty good racer. And I think we didn't really notice it as much because he was so low key, but they had quite a few points where they were, and both of them were like this, but he killed certain tasks. Like, really, like, you wouldn't expect it. Like, one's, again, him being like a diamond driller, I think, or something. Certain things involving like putting things together, and a lot of Amazing Race Canada things he was very good at. And I'm not saying that all the deadpan people from the past are always that good at tasks. They just are so chill that the teams do well because they're just like, their partner's usually a little nuttier. Like Joel, his daughter, much more energetic, a little stressed out. You have those 2 and you have the interesting thing, but Grace was pretty chill too.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
Yeah, I think you don't have the opposites. You don't have the opposites at play. Like, it's not a Phil and Martina situation where one of them is at a 13 out of 10 all the time, and the other one is like compensating for this, because they were both very chill. And I think like Joe is younger, but I think he's gonna grow into his dadness. Like, he's already bringing the big dad energy, and it's only gonna get better as time goes on, because you would see it come out every so often. He'd be super chill, and then you'd get into the task like they're doing that jousting at the trampoline park, and he's just like, he's like using the battering ram as like a weapon, and he's just laughing his ass off the whole time. And I think I like the secret silly side of the deadpan dad archetype. And when that comes out, I think it's great. Like, Christian on Facebook, a friend of the podcast, my first Amazing Race friend, says that Joe with his sirloin steaks comment gives off some Phil Kogan dad joke energy. And I think that maybe Phil is kind of the they're like the intellectual heirs of the Phil Kogan dad joke energy.
Yeah, like Phil, like you would say, would have the dad jokes and just tell everyone on the mat the same
exact
joke.
same joke.
And then, and the greeter had to just be like, oh my gosh, just I can't take this anymore. Come up with some new material, Phil. But yeah, I really liked Drace and Joe as a team, and as they went along, it was fun. It's hard for me to rank because I feel like I'd almost have to go back and listen to all of our own podcasts to be like, oh yeah, I like that guy. He had that energy because it's so in the moment, but he's in the moment right now. I think he's up there.
Yeah. And I want to give also a special shout out to season 3, Brian and Cynthia, because I feel like that was another like they weren't chill per se, but they had this very consistent energy, and they brought the deadpan, and it was both of them. And you just they just riff off of each other, but the riffing would just stay at like a 4 the entire time.
Cynthia actually is better for this choice than Brian, because Brian sometimes got a little nutty. And
he would get angry, but she would not get angry.
Hey, okay. So yeah, she might actually be the better choice for those two. And hey, it's it can be anybody. It doesn't have to be.
You don't have to be an old man to be a deadpan dad. Be the deadpan dad you want to see in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Jesse. That guy's like 25 or something or whatever.
Deadpan dad energy.
Yeah,
all the way.
I think he probably had that when he was 12. I don't know, but so here's something interesting, Jess, which I did a little research on. From Jay Farb said that Grace and Joe broke did you know about this? The finish second to last in leg 1 curse. Are you familiar with this curse, Jess?
I'm not familiar with this curse. I thought it was, I had completely forgotten how poorly they showed up in the first leg. So this is fantastic. Yes, please enlighten us on the finish second to last in leg 1 curse.
Well, I would love to tell you I just remembered how every team did in every leg. Not true.
I want you to have done your research. I think it speaks more highly of you that you are willing to go the extra mile.
So Jay Farbs on Blue Sky said, I'm pretty sure no team before them lasted more than 5 legs, and like half of them got eliminated immediately. The second part is totally true. There were a lot, including just last season, the team with the couple that were very sweet, but that her legs hurt the whole time.
Oh yes,
they were the one who went out right away after barely surviving in Niagara Falls last season. But there's quite a few. And we had another one where the guy tore his shoulder from the wave. They were second last.
Yeah, the surfing.
One, and then went out next. There's been quite a few. But I did find one exception. Well, the 5, most of them didn't last more than 2. Kelly and Kate in season 4, who I remember mostly, I think they did a karaoke that I thought was fun.
And didn't they win that leg too?
They did, and then went out the next one. They lasted 5 episodes, but had a really fun leg where they did really well. It was kind of karaoke, but I think it was like you had to match some words. The team, though, that breaks this, Jess, is Cedric and Tyshawn, season 8. One Big Brother player in there. They lasted 7 episodes, and they also had no weird pandemic, getting pulled out and coming back shenanigans. They were in 7 straight episodes, and they were 9th in episode 1. So they are the exception. They're the only one, though. Grace and Joe have done the best of any team that finished second last, but before that, the closest was 7 episodes, and that was 7 episodes when they did like 11 or 12, not when they only had 10. So it was a bigger deal.
I would love to see someone crunch the numbers on this, across the globe. I want to know. I think Amazing Race Australia, our go-to season 2, didn't Lucy and Amelia come in second to last on that?
Well, didn't they get saved, or what happened there?
Yeah, it was. There was a twist where they came in. I think they came in last, and the team that came in first was allowed to save them or not.
Yeah, and they chose to save them, and then they lasted for a really long time. So that was basically. So yeah, they had very similar. I was trying to think. So it was the second leg, because I'm like, Gino and Jesse nearly went out in episode 2, and they were second last and then ended up winning, but that was not the first leg. So that does not work. In that season, Susan and Charnjit were 11th in the first leg and then went out in the next leg. So season 3, not a good example. So
I remember Gino and Jesse like walking up that hill in Argentina.
Yeah. And they were so close to going out. I was like, oh my gosh, that's gonna.
No. I would have busted my bracket so bad.
Oh, that was what good time, season 3. I look back fondly on that.
I need to go back and watch that one again.
Yeah, I need to do that for a lot. One, because when we get these kinds of questions, I would actually remember more of them. Because there's a few seasons I have watched more than once. I think 1 and 2 I watched several times. But most of the seasons I watched when we covered them. And I've gone back and watched clips or episodes, but I haven't just gone back and watched the whole season. Of course, then these shows need to stop having seasons, because if you think about it, we got Amazing Race Australia going on right now. And I said they only have two legs per week. That is incorrect, Jess. They had 3 legs in the first week, which threw me off guard. We've got Amazing Race US coming back. We just had Survivor. There's a lot of traders, somebody we know might be in that, it's things coming up, there's a lot. So it's hard to go back, but I think it would be fun to go back and do that. But let's go on to some more questions. Let me ask you one here.
All right.
Let me see here. There's so many. We've already covered a few of them. Oh, here's, I want to ask you this question. I did some research. Okay. Let's ask you. Jessica Frey, she had a bunch of questions, but who did it better in 2025? Jack and Carson or Jesse and Jonathan? To remind you all from the ancient past, Jack and Carson and Jack won the last season of Amazing Race US.
It's been 84 years.
7 feels like a long time. A lot has happened since then.
A lot
of things going on. So, Jessica Frey says that she is team Jack and Carson. Now, to me, I read this as just like, which team do you like? I did some research on how they finished and stuff, but I don't know if that's really the question here.
Well, I think it's a strikingly similar trajectory for both of them, because you have them both starting out crazy strong, seeming completely unbeatable, and then almost going out. And I would say if we're going to rank the total flukes that kept them in the race, Jack and Carson had a much bigger one where they should have gone home and they didn't. And that was pretty wild. Jesse and Jonathan were at the back of the pack for 2 entire legs, and it wasn't looking good for them, but they rallied. And I think you've got the team getting back up on their own feet and finishing really strong, versus a team having almost a bolt from the heavens come and save them when they should have been completely finished, and then coming back and winning it all. I had not to take a thing away from either one of them, because I think they're fantastic racers. Would love to see them go up against each other. If we're doing, it seems possible now that, Survivor AU versus the world is out there. And I've been saying for years, I want to see International Amazing Race All-Stars. And yeah, let's see it. Let's see them go up against each other. That would be amazing. So I don't know if I have one I like better. I like them both. I think they're great, and I love this. I don't think we've ever had a bad team of young gay best friends. That is an archetype that's always a team that we love. We had going all the way back to Oswald and Danny in season 2. It's also nice that it's not you have this representation where they're friends and they're not a couple. And it's just because you're similar ages and you both like dudes, that doesn't mean you're going to like each other in that way. You can just be best friends. And I think that's a fun archetype to have. And so many teams that I've loved have been in that family. So yeah, I'm happy with both of them. I think it's been a good year for Amazing Race wins so far. Let's see how we do in the back half of the year, because we got a whole other season of Amazing Race US coming up, and who knows how that's going to turn out.
Who knows? Yeah, only thing I'll add to that is I agree with everything you said, and I think the one difference, and this is not about who's better or worse, Jesse and Jonathan, because they won the first 3 legs, even I feel like even somehow Carson and Jack, like they kept having that where there was U-turns and things, and they're like, why is no one doing anything to us? Why
That's a good
they
point.
were really good at kind of being really strong until they won the last 3 legs, but being really strong, but not entirely. It's like the Survivor thing where there's one shield above you or something. There
Mm-hmm.
was always somebody that people wanted to take out more. Whereas Jesse and Jonathan win those first few legs and then win the leg when they got U-turned, and it was like game on. I mean, they had targets on them the whole way. So it's like both very impressive. And I had totally forgotten about the Carson and Jack, that I hate to say ridiculous, but that moment where they got to they could not believe that they were still in it. They were so amazed. Jesse and Jonathan had the one leg where they struggled the most was actually the non-elimination where they ended up the one with the donkeys where they ended up barely ahead. But then they were in real danger last week. I think that's when they were in the most danger was last week with the impossible quilt, basically, or something.
Yes.
But yeah, okay. So what else should we answer here?
We got a lot of comments, like a lot of people clocking various landmarks in Collingwood, which was kind of fun. We had Melissa Mack pointing out that the place they picked up the cupcakes in Blue Mountain Village is a well-known bar for bachelorette parties. I've been to at least 3 myself. It's such a beautiful area. It looked beautiful. It looked fantastic. And then we also had Laura Cherry on Facebook said, my husband works at the Collingwood airport. He had no idea that they landed and filmed there, and we're trying to figure out dates to see when they were there. It's a very small airport. So I think maybe that's my favorite thing that we keep running into this season is I think every single week somebody from the town that they were in had some local insight to share with us, and some even got to watch some of the filming. And I feel like when you keep it in Canada like that, you have a greater chance of that happening. You have people from the area who can jump on and like talk to us, the podcasters, and give us a little bit of extra intel about the location. And it also really felt a little more like a community because it's like, here's your town. They're going to your town, doing your things. And it always makes me very happy. It makes me wish I was Canadian. And this is a year in which I have wished I was Canadian on a daily basis. And then to spend the summer watching Amazing Race Canada just makes me love it more. Like, your country's awesome. You guys are great.
Yeah, I think it's great. And that's the big difference too. Like we can make jokes about Chamber of Commerce, Amazing Race and all that. But the one fun thing is it's just like, I don't know. I like when they involve the community, even the cupcakes. The people having that birthday party were thrilled to be there. It wasn't fake, or like the actors who did the diarrhea thing. I mean, there are just a lot of fun moments with locals.
Yeah.
Or the leg with the onion guy. I mean, come on. It's just
it's really, it belongs to Canada in a way that Amazing Race US will never belong to the US. They get to have this real sense of everybody is in on it. Everybody unites around it. And here in the US, they're never going to unite around anything. But they have to make it big and spectacular and pull in the ratings and be the #1 most extravagant Amazing Race ever. And I love my US Amazing Race. It has brought me so many amazing things in my life. I would say I'm probably the person whose life is most affected by Amazing Race without ever having actually competed on it or worked on it. And I owe it a lot, but it's also Amazing Race Canada just has such a strong sense of national identity and excitement around it. And around, like, everybody gets to feel like they're in on it in a way that we don't really get to have. And it's fun. And I love it. It makes me so happy every season that we keep coming back and getting to learn more about different parts of Canada. And hey, I've been back to Canada, like, in the years since I've been covering the show. I've gone to Canada 5 different times, based solely on the fact that I'm like in the thick of Amazing Race Canada. I'm like, oh, I miss it. I'm going to go back.
Oh man, there's so many places I want to go. And I'm not talking about, sure, it'd be great to go to Montreal and Toronto. Don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of places that are not that I'm just like, that just looks cool. I mean, everywhere, almost everywhere. There's never anywhere where I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good. There's something fun everywhere. It just seems
Sudbury,
like.
man, I'm all in on Sudbury,
Yeah,
and that was before Shoresy.
there's always something. Okay, so we did get a question from Brandon Harder that does ask, and I'm going to say this up front, Brandon. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Where does this season rank amongst other Amazing Race Canada seasons? So I'll just say up front, the reason, I'm not trying to just be a jerk. I'm just saying the reason is, just like with US, we tried to do this, is I'm going to think about the really recent ones, but I'm going to put glossy eyes, or, I'm going to look back at the early seasons, and it's really hard for me to not rank them the highest because they were figuring out the format. There's all these people that you still kind of remember from the early seasons, and it's harder sometimes in the middle with like your 5, 6, 7, 8, all that. I mean, I remember teams from every season. It's harder for me, and I also don't want to be like, that one's terrible, because I don't feel like any of the seasons are terrible. There's one with the team that I particularly did not enjoy that I would probably put at the bottom, but I'm just saying overall, I get something different out of every season, and some stand out possibly due to who the winners are, and maybe we interact with them, whatever. And some are just really good, like season 4. But I don't know. So I'm curious, Jess, from your point, I know I asked the question that started to answer it. That's not what I should do. But how are you feeling about this season overall? Not as much like putting it in a placement, but just what are your overall feelings?
I think I'd probably put it top half. I think it was really a fun season with a lot of competition. We had a lot of memorable characters and teams that we'll think about for years. And of the things that we look for every season, I think they did them very well. Like the little town we would have never heard of otherwise. And the deadpan dad archetype, and the one character that's just completely unhinged the entire time. We had all of those things, and it was great. And I don't come away from this feeling like there was something that we should have had that we didn't. So in that regard, I think I'm happy with it. There's never been, there's been like maybe a couple of teams that I thought, I'm going to be fine with not having them in my life anymore. But the vast majority of Amazing Race Canada teams are fantastic. They're great people. They're really fun to watch, and they're rootable. We've never had a winner that felt outright disappointing, I think. And yeah, I'm happy to be back here. I do think we did get some comments on this subject. I wonder, I do not like how heavily male our winner rankings, our winner list skews. Like we've had 2 female teams win the whole thing, but most of the time it's 2 dudes who win it, or it's I would like to see a little bit more gender parity among our winners. That might be my only note for Amazing Race Canada on the whole.
Yeah, and I think if you look at it, I mean, we had 2 females last season, but I think the show started with the first 3 seasons being all male, and then again in season 5, and then again in season 7, and it's like, oh boy,
Yeah.
So it was 5 of the first 7 seasons. So I feel like it's gotten a little better, but this season though, it was a lot about, Jesse and Jonathan versus Evie and Blake. Now, granted, it's hard for the show. We've seen seasons where you look at it and you're like, wow, there's some really strong female teams that could win. Unfortunately, they don't. Like, we had the Twins last season. We've had other teams that have gotten to the finale or gotten to the top 5. Frank and Nella, like I mentioned, were really close. So it's like sometimes teams are really close and it just goes that way. But it is something I would like to see more of, because like you've seen in US, which I know was also brought up, a lot of if you're drafting Amazing Race, US especially, but either one, we didn't do a draft this season, but picking the 2 dudes is usually a pretty good choice, unfortunately.
Yeah, like the number of times that I've picked either the most low-key hetero couple or the 2 dudes, and I've been right, it's almost every time I do that, I end up being right. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is to that because I don't want them to change the race to accommodate. And I think they do a great job of casting, but it's just I'd like to see a little bit more of it. But yeah, Dan, is there any other parting thoughts you want to go with before we put this to bed and send it on its trip around the world?
Well, I did like I wrote up the price tracker for Josie and Jonathan, and I added it up, and they won $300,000 total,
Nice.
4 trips, Bali, Tokyo, Queenstown, Mexico City,
Plus
and
a trip around the world. That's
from
5 trips.
Canada's favorite Fuse, and 2 Chevy trucks that I'm not going to remember what they are. So I'm not going to go through everybody, but that's pretty impressive. That's a haul, Jess.
That's like, that's like an unboxing video that I want to see. My question is, how are they going to take all those trips? Because there is a time limit on how long, or at least there is in the US. I do not know, but I do remember speaking to teams that have won these leg prizes and having them like really struggle to take all the trips. Like you have to do that around the world trip.
Oh.
And you also have 4 other trips. You basically go around the world twice.
Yeah, and it's tough because you look at it, and like I've said, like, you really going to skip Bali or Tokyo or New Zealand? I mean, even Mexico City is like such a gigantic city. I mean, it's like, that's a metropolis. And so, I mean, it's tough to look at those and be like, well, you can just set that one aside. That's pretty easy to get to. It's like, nope, no, they're not. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I'll give that one to my parents. I don't know.
Yeah, they could go there. But yeah, and the only other thing I want to mention is we did get a comment that I thought did sum up kind of their story from Ivan on Facebook. And his comment is, while Jesse and Jonathan's season didn't finish as dominant as it started, except for, I guess, in the finale, that's my addition, I'm glad that they had to face adversity because we got to see how they handled the highs and lows of the race. That makes for the most satisfying winning story possible.
100%.
And I agree. That's the only difference, really. You think about Ricky and Cesar, great people, seems like, good racers, had their moments, but it was really easy for a while. And that was a little different here, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love them as people. I loved watching them on the race, but it was just like, after a certain point, I'm just like, I'm here for the vibes because I already know who's going to win.
Right. Yeah, that was one where it was even this way. I wasn't that much. But no, I think that's all I had to add. I enjoyed the season, and it's always fun. Like, that's the thing when somebody asks about the seasons, it's like they roll into each other, but I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, oh, that every season's the same. No, every season's kind of its own thing. But I do like that they are trying some different things. But if they keep casting, like, this was a really good cast, so was last season. They keep doing a good job with the cast and trying to have a lot of different types of relationships and people. The show is going to keep hitting. I think that's the main thing. That's the secret. And keep doing all the tasks. Amazing Race US. Listen someday. Keep doing all the tasks. It's going to be fun. I'm glad they're coming back next season.
Yeah. What I don't understand is, how does Canada have a population that's 15% of the US, and yet their casts are routinely as strong, if not stronger, than the US Amazing Race? That I do not understand. How do you, what's in the water up there? Like, what's in Hudson Bay that is making you guys so much cooler than us? I mean, that's death, taxes, and Canada envy. That's my life right now.
It's just philosophy, I think. I think it's just the style of the show. I watched this with my daughter. She's 12. And this season especially, like, sometimes the US, she's like half playing Nintendo Switch, half watching. This season, I could tell she was a lot more into it. And she's like, Dad, why is Canada so much better than the US version? I was like, oh, I'm not even selling it. That's just, and I think it's something about the fun. I think they do tons of things. There's good vibes. It's fun. US is more spectacular. I know we've talked about this a lot, but they could learn a few things about just have some fun with it. Don't take it so seriously. Do a lot of stuff, even if it's silly kind of Chamber of Commerce stuff. Do it. It's fun. I like fun shows. We need more fun shows in our life, Jess.
Yeah, we need more fun and good.
Yes, fun and good. That's right.
Yeah, and I will say what you want about Amazing Race Canada. It's the only version of Amazing Race that my child has watched without me. Just caught it in the wild, like, this looks cool, I'm going to watch it. And he doesn't do that with Amazing Race US. I'll tell you that for free.
90-minute episodes.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Not so much. Not so much. 60
Nope.
minutes is ideal. You need it to go fast.
On the other hand, I'd probably watch 2-hour episodes of Canada, but that's summer.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else going on. But speaking of having anything else going on, what's up with you, Dan?
This is really, really it for me right now. I know I mentioned I made a few podcast appearances a few weeks ago, but really, I'm just looking forward to being a fan. I'm a fan now. What am I talking about? But just enjoying the shows, taking a little break, hoping we can come back and do this again next year. I just want to say thanks to all you guys, the listeners. I don't say this enough, but all the good questions and comments like make doing this more fun, whether it's email, YouTube, Blue Sky, Facebook, whatever. That's been made it really fun. I think it's built as we've gone along. And of course, thanks to Rob for letting us do this, because this has been really cool.
Yeah, it's been so much fun. We're up to a decade of doing this, Dan, which is wild to me, but it's been so great. We have such a community that we've built around this, and the interactions that we get every week, it's really fun to have the regulars. It's like a bar. It's like we're the bartenders and we're having happy hour and everybody just comes up and like we serve them Canadian beer and shoot the crap, and it's great. So I hope everybody sticks around this fall. So I've got coming up, I've got a week off, and then we're going to be right into it with Amazing Race US, which is the Oops All Big Brother season. And so far, I'm excited. I don't know exactly how this is going to go for me, but Mike Bloom and I will be out there every week talking about all things Amazing Race Big Brother until I get chased off the internet because I have a bad take on a team I didn't watch on Big Brother. We'll see what happens, but I'm here for it. It seems like a really fun cast. I've had the opportunity. We talked to Taylor Hale, who is one of the cast members, sat down with us to really get people hyped for like, this is why you as a Big Brother fan should watch The Amazing Race. And then last night, our draft dropped. Taryn Armstrong, Mike Bloom, and I did a draft of the Big Brother teams. And we did this draft several months ago while the teams were filming, the day after they left for filming, because we knew that there was a non-zero chance that one or more of us would wind up hella spoiled about this. And so we wanted to get our fresh takes in, and we drafted the teams before they had even finished racing. And that is a very fun podcast that if you're ready to get hyped for next season, you should definitely check it out. So I will be back very, very soon. And I hope that you'll all stick around for that. Don't be strangers. There's a lot of fun stuff coming up. So we still want to hear what you thought of the season. We want to hear what you think about Amazing Race in general. Join us over at our Facebook group. You can search for Amazing Race on RHAP in Facebook, or you can just go to robswebsite.com/targroup. When you apply to go to the group, answer the questions. It asks you questions. If you don't answer the questions, I'm going to assume you are a spammer and I'm going to delete you. So you don't want to be deleted. You want to join the fun. You can also find us on social media. Over at Instagram, I'm Haymaker Hattie, and on Blue Sky, I am Jess Liese, and Dan is at the Dan Heaton across all the platforms. And we love chatting all things Amazing Race with you. I also want to give a shout out to a new platform that we are partnering with this season called Chat BCC, which Mike Bloom and I are on here. We have a special Amazing Race dedicated channel with most of the cast of the upcoming US season. And if you want to join that, I've got a link in my Instagram bio, and I will also throw some links up in the Facebook group and on Blue Sky for you guys to join. So we'd love to have you there. Dan, this is it, man.
I know. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing all of you guys talk about it and to learn about Big Brother players that I don't know anything about. So I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm going to try and still hang out on Facebook and comment and stuff. So hope to chat with a lot of you during the season.
We're all here to learn. So very excited. Thank you once again, Dan, for being here with me for an entire decade at this point. And of course, thanks to everybody out there listening and commenting and writing in. We really have loved that so much. And thanks to everybody behind the scenes for putting this all together. So I guess that's it for us. We will see you next summer.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.